are back. You're listening to You Would Think, the Philadelphia Flyers podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Collington, and joining me today is Kevin Durso. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It was a bit of an interesting week for the Flyers. Listen, let's be honest here. There's not a whole lot going on. We're in the dog days of the season. We're limping towards a top 5 pick, probably. The Flyers won 2 games this week, which is actually kind of a bad thing at this point in the season.
I was going to say, depends on who you ask. I don't know if everybody thinks they're limping towards that top 5 pick per se.
Well, if they keep winning 2 games a week, it's going to slow that progress down, and that's no good.
Depends. Okay, so this is going to depend on who they're playing because look, I'll give them full marks for a game against the Rangers that let's put it this way. They had every reason to lose said game because they were winning the game and then blew the lead in about 12 seconds.
Yeah, brutal.
Which was hilarious.
Yeah.
But the 2 Columbus games, Columbus didn't exactly play all that well Tuesday and won. And then, you got exactly what you saw from the Thursday game where the Flyers get the win pretty convincingly, to be honest.
I do want to touch on that on that Thursday game in a second.
Sure. And then Saturday was – look, Anaheim we know has more skill than the Flyers do. Even if they're not going to make the playoffs, they have more skill. And
for sure.
Wait until you play, wait until you play Washington and Toronto, who at this point need to be fine-tuning the playoff push.
Yeah, they're going to be pedal to the metal.
Washington's not officially in, but they're pretty much in,
Right.
By all
estimations.
The Rangers
is
are
locked.
Well, yeah, Toronto's a little later on in the schedule still for the last one, but the Rangers are officially locked. Anybody else? Pittsburgh, I don't know if is officially locked, but they're going to make it. We know that.
Right.
Because I think the 4 that are officially locked at this stage, Florida's a lock. Toronto and the Rangers both clinched on Saturday.
Yep.
And
Colorado's the only team in the West.
Maybe it is Pittsburgh then, because I think Tampa's not yet. Or no, Carolina is. Carolina's the other.
Yeah, Carolina is.
So Pittsburgh is not. Tampa is not. Boston is not. Washington is not officially. Though we can all look at standings and we can all count the margin.
Yeah, it's a 13-point gap at the moment.
It's a 13-point gap, and now the thing that the Islanders
and
now the thing the Islanders have is no longer applies. Like there were times where you're looking and you go, well, it is the 13-point gap, but the Islanders have 3 extra games.
Right.
Oh, maybe no.
No, and that's been shut down pretty heavily here.
No, and I mean here's the thing: the Islanders are going to turn out to be a hold for the bad start. They're going to be exactly what I think everybody expected them to be, which is. They'll be the first ones out. Maybe they cut into that margin a little bit. I mean, they had an awful game on Saturday. I don't remember who they played. They played St. Louis. They had an awful game against St. Louis. But bottom line, you know the teams that are making the playoffs out of the East, and the Flyers are going to play enough of them. I mean, Toronto's on the schedule, the Rangers, Washington. They don't get any of those other teams. I don't think they really play the West anymore either, do they? Not much.
No, it's pretty confident.
Chicago and Winnipeg. That's it, right?
Yeah.
But you do have some interesting games coming down the stretch. And we've talked about this before with the home and home that's against Buffalo. They've got Montreal on the schedule. They've got Ottawa on the schedule, and you're looking at those games and going, you know what? All of those games could.
Martin Jones better start all of them.
See, the funny part is that I had somebody who from 97.3 who kind of put out on Twitter, who put out serious question: why is the backup starting the game on Lou Nolan?
It's been a pretty heavy rotation of Martin Jones recently.
It has. Now, hang on a second, because
I think it's a good thing for the record.
But I explained it because lately it hasn't been a good thing, in theory, because that was the thing. Serious question: why is Martin Jones starting? Why is your backup starting a game where you're having this big celebration and all stuff?
I agree.
And I know where people are coming from with that. And I turned around and I said, Jones has been better recently, and Yo is still trying to win games, whether people agree or not. And I'm something like these events, hey, we're honoring Lou Nolan, isn't going to influence what goalie they start.
A lineup decision, right?
Or any other lineup decision for that matter.
Right.
which I'm trying to remember what the follow-up question to that was. It was just he just sent like a gift back of like what's it called? Like just like one of these like headache kind of things. Like okay, sure, Mike Yo's got me like giving me headaches or whatever. And I turn around, and again my response: he's trying to earn a job next year. He's not going to be the head coach here, but he could, like, if he's willing to stay as an assistant, they probably would entertain that because the players do seem to like him, and especially in that role because the assistant is the communicator, not necessarily the guy who calls all the shots, if you will. Or he's trying to earn it. I'm like, there will be openings. There will be plenty of openings. So he's trying to get on somebody's radar, and you do that by winning games. Whether people like the fact that they're winning or not, you do it by getting through to players and having them play well enough to win.
Right.
So as much as people don't like the idea, like everybody's going to sit there, they should be losing games. Listen, all you want to do at this stage of the season is give yourself pretty close to the guaranteed top 5. That's what you need. Like, I don't think that they're going to end up with the best lottery odds. I think Arizona's pretty well coasting into that one.
Yeah.
But you're in the top 5 right now, and all you really need to do is, at worst, come away with the fact that you probably pick 4th or 5th, because you're right. That's right there. It's close. But come away with the fact that you probably pick 4th or 5th without getting lucky, and then maybe you have a chance to win something out of it, even if
and the teams in 4th and 5th jump all the time, and you get the second pick overall.
Even if you get number 2, there's value to that. Like, this isn't, let's not confuse this year with next year in terms of this is not the Connor Bedard sweepstakes.
To be fair, next year, if you get second, you still get Mitchkov, and you're happy about it.
Well, but listen, you're not trying, like, this isn't like there's one guy. Like, this is not losing the Connor McDavid sweepstakes.
No,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Or Austin Matthews. This is, Shane Wright's going to be a really good player, and you'd love to get the first pick to get a player like that. You'd love to get the 2nd or 3rd pick to get, Logan Cooley.
Yep.
Like, you'd love to get a player like that too. They're all going to have some form of value. I don't even know if they're going to play here next year. That's how, like, weak the draft could be.
Oh, right. I think there's some real possibility that if you get a Cooley or you could see them in the lineup this fall.
I'm not trying to say that there's not a possibility.
Right.
It just comes down to determination and like determining, like, in terms of where these guys fall in line,
right. and what we see the rest of the summer out of Chuck too.
Yeah, that whole thing's, and it's going to be a mystery because he's going to,
Yep.
Look, my belief is that they're not going to make many changes in free agency. They'll throw some money at somebody. It maybe will be enough to get somebody, but is it going to make that much of a difference? One guy.
Elliot Friedman certainly seems to think it's going to be Nazem Kadri.
And I think Nazem Kadri's a nice player. Like,
I agree.
Look, he can be a headliner on Colorado with guys out of the lineup because there's still somebody who can make him a little bit better. And he's playing in a system and a style where at the end of the day, who also was, like, we can talk about line mates for Nazem Kadri all we want to. Who wasn't out of that lineup during most of that time that can help you out a lot too? Cale Makar.
Fair enough.
Like a defenseman who has that kind of ability, who is either moving the puck so quickly that you're getting points off the rush because he's springing odd man rushes, or joining them for that matter because he's that good. Like, there's an element of that as well. So, look, if that's the type of guy, that's the type of guy. And listen, maybe I don't want to sit there and assume anything, but maybe they do have somehow or other enough money. I don't know how they'd have enough money to do this, but like so that's a whole nother thing. But if somehow or other they cleared enough money in one way or another to sign a Nazem Kadri and a Johnny Gaudreau, then, like, okay, you're hitting some. You're trying to take the Phillies approach here. You're trying to get some headliners coming in free agency. That's they're gonna draw people because they should be big names. But does that win? Does that equate to winning? I don't know that it does. And I don't know, like, to me, I know everybody's fascinated with the Johnny Gaudreau perspective and, like, the idea that he could have a homecoming and all that type of stuff.
Right.
I just don't think there's enough money in the world for him to recognize that this is a team that doesn't have the potential, the same potential as the team he's currently on.
But can Kevin Hayes pull the wool over his eyes? That's the question.
I think he's smarter than that.
I don't disagree with you, but the combination of factors is going to be a lot to overcome. It's going to be hard to say no. It's hard to say no to friends and family, and that's what he's going to have to do.
It is, but it's they've got a legit shot this year, and they might get, honestly, as far as the conference finals. I think at that point they might run into the buzzsaw that is Colorado, but
what happens if they beat them? What if they're hot? What if Markstrom's on absolute fire and stands on his head for 6 games?
Well, and in fairness, I would give Calgary the edge over Colorado. No disrespect to Colorado at all. And Darcy Kemper, I'd give Markstrom the edge.
That is hard to say. I don't disagree with you. Oh, I give Markstrom the edge for sure, but I don't know if I can give Calgary the edge.
No, I'm giving them the edge in goaltending.
Okay, yeah. In that case, certainly, yeah.
No, that's all. I'm talking about just at that particular position. I'm not giving the team the edge at all, but I'm saying I would give them with Markstrom because you're talking about players getting hot.
Okay, for a second it sounded like you'd be picking them in a series.
No.
I don't know about that.
No, I'm agreeing with you in the terms of Markstrom gives them a slight edge in goaltending that I think. And that's why I said it was no disrespect.
Sometimes in the playoffs, that's all that matters.
Right. I'm saying no disrespect to Darcy Kemper, who has played well. And I did catch overtime of that game last night that they played against Edmonton. Outstanding. How Kemper played.
Yeah.
Penalty with McDavid and Draisaitl out there the entire time to make tons. I mean, I think they said he made 7 saves in overtime, which is absurd.
For the 3-on-3 is insane.
3-on-3 and then 2 minutes of 4-on-3.
Right.
So absurd. But I do think that Markstrom for a whole body of work, Markstrom has the edge over Kemper.
Certainly.
And if he ends up being, turns into the brick wall that he can be, maybe there's an edge for Calgary at that point if that's the Markstrom you get. I don't know. I don't know how many teams in the West, though, I look at that, I go, Calgary's not on their level. I think Calgary's on the level of pretty much everybody else.
No, I think it's a 2.5 horse race in the West.
Who else are you including? Minnesota?
I think if Vegas gets in. Because
Vegas
you have
getting
to remember,
in would be interesting, and especially if they can play that card where,
I was going to say,
LTIR guys comes back.
They're already, they have to clear, they don't have to clear that much space to activate Stone. I think I read something that putting Nolan, Patrick, and 2 other guys, I can't remember the names right now, on LTIR, and they're guys that are currently hurt.
Right.
Putting those guys on LTIR would be enough to clear space for Stone, and they could get Mark Stone back active. And at that point, you get a couple of weeks with Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, give them some time to get some juices going before the playoffs. Don't count Vegas out, because if they get in at full strength.
Well, true. That's
terrifying.
The only thing right now that is completely against them, and they've definitely got talent and they've got the potential to make that spot, no doubt. But the only thing that's going against them right now is they are tied for the last wildcard spot. They're 2 points back of the first wildcard spot, but those 2 teams have 2 extra games to play.
You gotta,
and when you don't, and the one thing you can't get back, no matter how good your team is time. So having only 9 games left as opposed to 11, which the other 2 teams have, Dallas wins a couple of games there, Nashville wins a couple of games, and you start pulling ahead. Nashville's already ahead of them by 2 points.
I'm going to ask you an honest question. Would you be surprised if Vegas went 7-1-1 in any random stretch of 9 games?
I wouldn't be surprised. Let's put this way. If they do that at this point, then they're not making the playoffs as a wild card. They're probably making the playoffs as the 3.
Well, sure, but that's what I'm saying. This team is the kind of team that has that potential, and I'm going to pull up their schedule real quick and just kind of see what they have remaining, because if they have a couple of soft games in there, I could see 7-1-1 easily. Yeah, they're playing Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton. They're going on their Western Canada road trip right now.
Yeah, but that's not easy.
That's not easy. You're right. The games against Calgary and Edmonton are going to be must-watches, by the way, because that's going to be exciting. And then you get New Jersey. That's a win. Washington, it's a tough game, but, that's a game you should win if you're really desperate at that point. San Jose, that's a win. Dallas, that's a win. Chicago, that's a win. And then you finish your season against St. Louis, which is going to be an interesting little playoff tune-up.
I would pull back on one of the things you said there.
Okay.
I'm not calling that Dallas game a win at all.
Oh, if you're the team getting in, that's a win. It has
reason,
to be.
I know the reason I'm not calling it a win though is because these 3 games that they have, Vancouver's probably closer, a little bit more of a possible win than the other 2.
I agree.
Playing Calgary and Edmonton is going to be tough.
Sure, you're hoping to get 3 out of 4 points if you can.
But Dallas, if it hangs around long enough, that Dallas Vegas game could
be
very
huge.
literally decide who makes the playoffs. And if Dallas
You're not wrong.
has a shot, they're gonna come out with everything they got because that is
Sure.
that's a headliner in the final week of the season.
And man, that Dallas team is a lot of fun right now too.
I don't have anything against Vegas because Vegas has been a fun watch and they've got a lot of players who haven't won anything before, which is another key part for me when it comes to the playoffs. If the playoffs started today and I looked at the teams in the West that are in, I've got 2 teams that I could take or leave winning the Stanley Cup at that point.
Okay.
Because and it's not a hate thing. Like I absolutely despise the team. It's honestly it's recency. I
did say 2.5 at the start of
no,
this
I know,
whole
but
thing.
like
I
know
that they're not a shoe-in for sure. But if they get there and if they're there healthy, they are scary.
Yeah, and I wouldn't care. Like I definitely am. Like I can definitely get behind the 2 wild cards right now. And if they made a run right now from those spots, I would be enjoying it. I really wouldn't like. Colorado, I think, has deserved to win for a while. I think they need to get they can't get over that second round hump, and sometimes the reason is the team that's not in the playoffs right now.
Right.
So you know what? For that reason, there's part of me that would love to see them face off in a first round series or whatever, just so that you could sit there and say, okay, they beat them first. So they took care of them, that team that everybody said, oh, they can't get past Vegas, blah, blah, blah. Nope, they got past Vegas, and now they go and play the other teams. I think
it would be a tough road to the cup at that point.
Oh, Colorado does not have an easy road when you think about it, because even though they are you're going to
end up playing Minnesota.
Or St. Louis.
Yeah, St. Louis is a tough team.
St. Louis is in there. But
I think Minnesota's a tougher matchup for Colorado, though. I think they I think they're kind of just better than St. Louis in every way.
But anyway, looking at some of the because looking at the 8 teams that are in right now, if that started the way it is right now, St. Louis just won 3 years ago, and I get it. It was a great story then. I'm ready to watch somebody else win.
Sure.
I'm not looking at Tampa Bay at all. I'm not Tampa Bay. Here's the thing I keep saying about Tampa Bay though, and this is probably the truth, because Tampa Bay keeps hovering between the wild card and that 3rd spot in the Atlantic.
Okay.
And I basically keep telling people they don't care about the rest of this regular season if they're going to make the playoffs.
You notice
they know they want to get in.
I noticed Carolina's
flip the switch.
Carolina's been losing games, and I think it's because they're trying to get out of that first spot in the Metro because they don't want to play whatever team's coming over from the Atlantic.
It's possible. I mean, I don't know.
Would you want to play Tampa in the first round? Would you want to play Toronto in the first round? Would you want to play Boston in the first round?
No,
I know it's the playoffs and there's no easy matchups, but whatever team comes over from the Atlantic to the Metro has a real chance at coming out of the division as well.
Well, yeah, I get that. I don't know. You know what? There's an element for me. I get what you're saying, and it could be some strategizing there. There's an element to me. No, there's also an element to me because you can't be afraid of anybody. If you're afraid of those matchups, then you're not a cup contender.
I agree.
Because you shouldn't be fearing anything at that point in time. The only reason you should be doing anything like that is, hey, listen, the results are going to be what they're going to be because we're missing blank.
Right.
And we'll get them back for the playoffs, but we're going to have to just take whatever we get because we're doing the best we can without so-and-so. And there's not many teams I can think of that are playing without somebody key. I mean, Boston did or will, I think, today. Because I think Pasternak's not playing right now, and who's the other guy I saw that's out? It was a defenseman, but I can't remember for whatever reason. But there's a defenseman I think who's out too. Not like McAvoy.
Was it? I can't remember.
Maybe it was Grizzlick or something like that. It was somebody who was higher up or somebody else was out today. Okay. That's all I know. Somebody else was not going to play today.
Brandon Carlo, maybe.
No, Carlo's playing.
Oh, okay.
But it was somebody else was not able to play. And they're starting Olmark today. I know that, but there's all these decisions. You know what I mean? All these crazy decisions go into it, and it's the reason why we're still going to have shows once the season's over, because we can have just as much fun talking about this as we.
Absolutely.
Well,
we are hockey fans. We're going to watch the playoffs. We're going to be here talking about them. So
listen, we need to do that because of the fact that after watching the last 4 months of all the other stuff,
it's nice watching good hockey.
It's going to be fun. And listen, I'm doubling down on my entertainment value with it because of the fact that I've got those games. And I've got a few Phillies games lined up that I'm going to go to. And
nice.
Because I even said, like, listen, I could be foolish here by sitting here getting all excited about their season and stuff. I'm like, listen, I just watched 4.5 months of this. I just need something to hope in for a little bit. Like, just let me hold on to hope for a little bit.
Need some hopium.
But you know what? Speaking of hope, why don't we get to a couple of
let's talk about that. So
talk about.
I put a pin in that Thursday Columbus game, the game the Flyers ended up winning 4-1. And the reason I wanted to talk about that game is because of who the Flyers goal scorers were, right? We had 4 goals scored in that game, and Kevin Connaughton scored the first one, and I'll be honest, don't have a lot to say about him. It's nice. I believe it was his first as a Flyer, correct?
For who?
Sorry?
For who are we talking about?
Kevin Connaughton. It was his first as a Flyer,
yes,
correct?
It was.
Okay.
It was. Which, by the way, it was funny to me that it happened in Columbus because I believe he played there before.
Okay.
And don't ask me why I remember this. I do. It's stupid. But
okay.
Years and years and years ago, he had a game-winning overtime goal against the Flyers while playing for Columbus, I believe.
I'm 0% surprised.
So it just makes me laugh that he scored his first goal as a Flyer,
in Columbus.
And I'll be honest, I didn't really catch as much of Thursday's game as the others. I had something kind of come up last minute that forced me kind of away. I ended up not being at Tuesday's game in person, but I watched it. I didn't get to watch much of Thursday's game because of something else.
Right.
And basically, as I saw the updates come through, I'm like, wow, okay. Like you're sitting there thinking, I think everybody was kind of waiting on Thursday specifically because of where it was.
Right.
Maybe the Cam Atkinson goal is coming at some point because everybody was expecting it. And I saw that and I'm like, oh, wow, he scored his first. Like, okay, like kind of unexpected there. It's one of those things. I have to go back and see if I can figure out what years he was in Columbus and see if I can find if he scored that. He only played 2 years in Columbus apparently, so it wasn't many.
Okay.
But either way, like he was more of a surprising figure to score that goal, and then we got into like some of the other guys who, you had brought up kind of before we started, Travis Konechny getting a goal, which is, it's just nice to see because you want to see him kind of keep getting on a roll. He had a couple of, he had a couple chances in Saturday's game too that it's just missing for him, and it's unfortunate because he's in the right spots to do some things, and it's just not coming together like the way that it should.
Right, and we've seen that before. Result. We've seen that before out of Travis, so seeing him get one is nice because it's a good little confidence booster for him and helps kind of get him back on the horse, and we've seen that work with him before. But the other 2 guys who scored in that game were Owen Tippett and Noah Cates. It's nice seeing Tippett continue adding, he's looked really, really solid. I'm very happy with where he's at right now. And then Noah Cates has looked pretty solid since he's been here. And seeing him net his second, it's nice kind of seeing some of the young kids contribute. And, you're starting to see what the roster is going to look like next year, maybe. Tippett's probably going to be on it. Cates is probably a little more questionable. He might end up in the bottom 6 somewhere, but it's nice getting a little bit of a preview towards next season.
So I want to talk about both of those guys because the fact that I don't typically get to morning skates and things like that frequently, but I went on Saturday, and when Mike Yeo came up and was talking to the media that was gathered there, I asked him a couple questions about those 2 players because. Well, he talked about guys who get rewarded for having good habits. He kind of broadened that thing, and I kind of went into Owen Tippett at that point because I'm like, look, it seems like the good rewarded for good habits. It's not rewarded in terms of goals, but like the guy had what 3 breakaways against the Rangers, and then had more against Columbus over the course of unfortunately, the sad part is I'm talking about that going into the Anaheim game, and it was probably his weakest game of the last several.
Fair.
But leading up to that point, you're sitting here going, well, yeah, he does have a couple goals because he scored against the Rangers and he scored against Columbus. And you're going, okay, but all of the opportunities, I mean, he had breakaways left and right, and he's, like all that type of stuff. So, Yo said he could certainly have had 2 or 3 more than he already did have.
Sure. He's hit pipe a couple of times.
But I followed it up and I asked him, is there anything, because you're learning when they get a player like that and it's the middle of the season or late in the season for that matter, you're learning about him on the fly. You don't have time to kind of go into like you're a head coach or even an interim head coach at the time. Like you're sitting here, you're focused on the guys you have at the moment. You're not sitting here going, oh, we might get in a trade, so I'm going to watch his games. You have to learn about the player and learn about the player on the fly from a sense of even he showed up 20 hours after the trade happened and played a game. For your team. You have no knowledge of him at all except for maybe watching at that point Saturday night. Oh, I'll watch one of his old games now because I'm getting him tomorrow. But, other than that, so I asked him, is there anything that surprises you about his game? And he said that, and I agree with this completely, he's probably a more powerful skater than anybody the most realized.
Yeah,
because he's got breakaway speed, breakaway speed, not in the sense of, hey, I can get in on a breakaway, but he pulls away from other players. And his skating is, you know what it is for his skating? His first stride is really good. When he can go from near standstill to getting into a play when he wants to pretty. He's
got a lot of power in his push off.
He is a good power skater. Yes.
Yeah. And it's been a couple of years since the Flyers have had a really good power skater. Even Wayne Simmons at the height of his power was never the best power skater.
And I don't want to make it seem like Owen Tippett is the greatest skater that's ever existed or anything.
No, for sure.
Or anything like that. He probably doesn't even have the best speed on his own team. Let's be clear.
No.
But he's a really good player in those areas, and the things that he's got to work on the most continue to be those areas that he said he's wanted to work on, the defensive side, the board battles, and that was the thing that got them in the most trouble in the Saturday game was they were losing the battles. They were losing the one-on-ones. They kind of, the word that came up after the game was maybe getting a feeling that it was going to be easy because of the fact that the first period had gone so well. Oh, maybe this will be easy. And it wasn't easy. A team with way more skill came down and then all of a sudden flipped the switch, got the talking to, and started trying to play like that,
Right.
But so I asked about him, but I also asked about Noah Cates because, this is for me, and I don't want to pump up players and make it seem like, oh my goodness, let's get on that train where it's they're the greatest thing ever. Noah Cates can be an effective bottom 6 player.
He's a mid-round pick coming out of college. There's not a whole lot of expectation.
He might, if you want me to be honest, he might be the perfect 4th line player.
Sure.
Because of the fact that he possesses the two-way ability that coaches love, and I brought I can't tell you the reaction that Mike Yeo has when I'm asking that question and I go to listen, I know he's got a couple goals and I'm pointing out he has a couple goals, but his two-way play really seems to be standing out. And Mike Yeo gives you that I'm glad you brought that up because I like talking two-way play. I know people go crazy over that stuff because at the end of the day, you need to see goals, you need to see skill, you need to see speed.
Right, but in your bottom 6, you need to see defensive responsibility also.
And I love the fact that right now they're not playing him like the 4th line guy.
Sure,
they're playing him in everything
the showcase.
Else. But they are right because you need to because the fact that you need to really see what you have and you can't just literally sit here and say that's the end of that. And there's we can talk about so many more players besides these two, but these two are the ones I wanted to focus on because I kind of pointed both of them out when I was at the practice. But Cates in particular. I can't say that I know for sure. These kids that come out of college and jump right into the lineup, they're doing that right now because it doesn't burn the call-ups. It doesn't do anything like that. They seem pretty content on letting them play, even though, with all due respect, and Ronnie Attard's gotten his first point, then he got his first goal. Like
he's had his first controversy with the whole Keith Yandel thing.
Well, that's not his fault, but
I know.
But the other stuff has been really good, right? Like he is producing. He's kind of, because for that first game that he played where all that type of stuff happened, he ends up, it turns into a kind of a bloodbath by the end of the game. He ends up as a -4. Like it kind of becomes like it becomes an it is what it is situation. Like
you got to put it behind you and move on.
Well, and he has for the most part because he's looked a lot more effective, and it looks like the game is coming to him a little bit better. Now, a lot of people will sit there that up in the press box will argue, he should have okay, I can see playing him for a couple of games, but then he should have gone down to the minors and kind of gotten a feel for it there. I don't necessarily disagree. I just also think that they're sitting here kind of going, what do we have to lose? Like,
right.
What is there to lose at this point other than more games?
Which again, is not necessarily the worst thing, right? Yeah, and I think Attard has looked solid, and with Cates, it's like you said, it's about trying him out, seeing where he fits in, and yeah, is he most likely to slot into your fourth line as a bit of a value role player, and kind of that Nicholas Obey-Kubel role we've seen in the past? Connor Bunnaman kind of fits that type too, or does he slot in with somebody else? Does he have really good chemistry with, some people higher up in the lineup? And then all of a sudden you have a little found money and you have a little diamond in the rough.
And if you're since you're talking Kate specifically here, the guy who I think, like when you said, does he slot up a little higher in the lineup? The first guy that comes to my mind is Scott Lawton.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Put him with Scott Lawton. You've got because at that point in time, see, and this is why I talk about it like this, and that's why I said he could be a perfect fourth liner. The guy doesn't score 2 goals by accident.
Right.
Like, he scored 2 really good goals.
Yeah.
One of which was actually while playing with guys on the fourth line. I mean, the setup is Patrick Brown.
Right.
Like, you need guys at the end of the day who play on that line who are not complete offensive liabilities. You need guys who can score, but mostly are out there just to focus on not getting scored on. And Cates really seems to fit that. He really has impressed me a lot. And
I agree.
That's
why I keep coming back to him.
Right, but that was the difference so far. And look, we're gonna do this because I'll go to the next tab that's right below this one in a second because that's gonna be the next step. But for me, he's one of these guys. Like, if I'm putting him next to Attard and going 2 guys out of college, which one looks more ready for the situation? Well, Attard looked a little more deer in the headlights at the start than
for the first game, for sure.
And I would say for even the second and the third, like he was doing better things, but he still looks like you're going, yeah, he looks, because even against that game against the Rangers, he looks, he looked passive. He looked a lot more like, oh man, here we go again. Look at the way it's coming in waves. He got better as that game went on, and defensively they got better, but I think that for me, Attard's last 3 games have been more of the positive progression, but the first 2 kind of showed the deer in the headlights look.
Sure,
I
didn't feel that to give the kid a break.
Right, but I didn't feel that way with Cates. I think that Cates had a really strong first impression just without doing anything productive in terms of goals or points or anything like that.
Just by looking fairly comfortable.
By looking comfortable, by looking the part in terms of what you do in the neutral zone and what you do in your own zone. He looked the part there. And
played
that
a full 60, got pucks in deep. Dig deep, bear down.
One guy doesn't play a full 60. But I appreciate all of the cliches. But seriously, I was impressed with his neutral zone play in that first game. Like, to kind of, because he was creating turnovers, which is really where I was looking at it, where I go, all right, I see something here.
Right.
And then it translated, and now all of a sudden he's getting offensive chances. He's scoring a couple goals. I've really liked the 2 goals he scored because one is go hard to the net. He ends up right in front of the net, gets a good pass, and buries it. And then the other one is, look at this crazy angle that he's scoring from, but he's got like a little bit of a nose for the net. And one of the things I think that matters for him that maybe, I can't say for Attard specifically. Now I can kind of say it for somebody else who we're going to talk about in a second. But one thing that matters for him is, he was on the Olympic team.
Yep.
You play against different players when you're on a team like that, and that
kind of exposure is valuable.
Because I think he's been around the block a little more. He's not just playing the 18 to 22-year-old age bracket that some guys get drafted, some don't. And it doesn't have a rhyme or reason to it other than that there's, guys, I think guys are willing to take chances on not drafting those guys because of the fact that some guys just develop, hey, they're 18 going to college. Waiting to see what they turn into in 3 years, and now they're a junior and they're an undrafted free agent. And you go, ooh, now I want to talk to this kid and sign him because look what he's done in the 3 years of college. Like that happens all the time.
Absolutely, a lot of players mature through their late teens,
but
into their early 20s.
But I think that Cates has used those experiences and played against older players and played against bigger players and has come out of this on the other side a lot better for it than others can. And I think another guy we need to talk about who had close to the perfect week.
Yeah, probably the biggest Flyers prospect currently speaking. Is that fair to say? At least up front?
Up front, probably.
Right, because, especially now that we're getting pretty close to considering Cam York graduated.
And up front, I would say the only name that I can think of that's comparable to Bobby Brink at this point is probably Tyson Forster, just because Forster carries
because of the impact he's had.
Well, and Forster carries the first round pick thing because Brink wasn't, and technically, and I think that Forster wouldn't be the number one name in the system if he wasn't having these crazy injuries that knock him out for extended periods of time.
Right.
Because he was honestly, if he doesn't get hurt at the minor league level this year and continues to play there and maybe shows something, I don't to be honest and again, all due respect, I'm not trying to criticize the player at all, but do we even call Hayden Hodgson's name at all?
No. I mean,
if Tyson Forster is completely healthy all year at the minor league level and produces.
Probably not.
Because I think that honestly, I think that was the intended goal. That especially if you were going to have a year like this. If you were going to have a year like this and Claude Giroux gets traded and, hey, Derek Brassard was on the team at the start of the year and he gets traded, you were going to have openings. That right there was the circle it and, he's the guy we want to bring up. But
that being said, Hayden Hodgson picked up his second goal this week, so we got to give him the shout out.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. So
he almost did. Second point.
Either way, man of the hour, Bobby or Brink.
Everybody loves that fact, don't they?
Recently won a national championship with the University of Denver, and by recently I mean yesterday?
Well, that's why I said almost a perfect week.
Right.
Because they're in the semifinal, the national semifinal, and he gets the assist on the game-winning goal in overtime that gets you into the national championship game. So that's already a big deal. The next night, he's one of the three up for the Hobie Baker Award. He did not win it.
Right.
Which is okay.
Robbed.
I don't know. Here's the thing about that.
I'm joking.
Because here's the thing about that award. Because the winner of the Hobie Baker this year was Dryden McKay,
who was 26 or whatever.
He was a finalist last year.
Okay.
Which tends to bode well for you.
It boosts your case.
Well, because of the fact that you were already close and then you followed it up with a better year and
and you're known to the voters.
Yes. So I get it. He came close, but either way, I think he'll trade the Hobie Baker individual award for the national championship the next night, of which, by the way, crazy third period. They're down 1-0 going to the third period. They scored 5 unanswered to win 5-1. And Bobby Brink, the leading scorer at the NCAA level, did not factor into a single goal.
Wow. I was actually just going to bring up his regular season stats. That's
read them off though, because this is why people are excited about him.
Right. So
the numbers are good.
College hockey, if you're unfamiliar, I'm going to preface this a little bit. The NCAA is pretty low scoring. You see a lot of 2-0, 2-1, 3-1 type of games. That being said, Bobby Brink had 14 goals and 43 assists in 41 games for 57 points.
It's impressive.
Pretty impressive at the NCAA level. Like you said, he led the NCAA in scoring this year. It's pretty exciting, and he is a little bit more of a playmaker, as you can see by the more than 1 assist per game. But
he has goal-scoring ability, though. Let's not downplay the number that he had just because it doesn't sound like it's all that high. It's still, very good. Now, Brink did not kind of like we talked about Kate's playing, basically getting a break in the middle of his college season because, hey, you're on the Olympic team. Isn't that awesome? Like that kind of thing. Brink, though, this is at least legit enough, very much a standout on the World Junior team
right
a year ago. Like very much a standout going into that year. His last year eligible to play on that that World Junior under 20 team. And, 6 points in 7 games. He's factoring into a lot of things. It's like that was kind of the starting to get noticed kind of thing. And then he really took it to another level in, what probably is going to be his last season at Denver. I mean, it feels like, to me, I keep coming back to the, to the comment that Chuck Fletcher made after the deadline, which was that he included Bobby Brink in the right wing lineup.
We have these guys present tense.
Well, like that, we have all of these guys that we're going to probably get into the lineup at some point, and you're like, okay, and you know what? I think he had included Wade Allison in that, and I think Wade Allison for right now is still sticking to the minors because they need to see Wade Allison's biggest knock is he needs to stay consistently in a lineup.
Right.
That's the biggest knock. No one is going to question that Wade Allison is an NHL caliber player.
Right.
It's just he's got to stay in the lineup.
Got to stay healthy.
I think right now, at this stage of the season, I think you don't necessarily want to put him in a lineup with bigger bodies and where there's a lot of higher. I think that
I don't know, man. The AHL isn't exactly a kids' league.
I wasn't saying it was. I'm saying I think that's their approach because to me that's the only reason why he's not the emergency call up.
Right.
When Joel Farabee's sick.
That's fair.
That's what I'm trying to get at. He's doing pretty impressive things. Now the other thing is he just left a game a week ago. And sits out another one and then came back this week. And that's all well and good, but it's still missing time in one way or another, which makes everybody be a little more careful with you,
Yep.
And it's just hurting his chance to get up here for one of these final now 10 games to go.
Right. And he probably deserves a shot, but it's a shame that he can't stay healthy enough to get it.
Right. And that's like I said, that's to me the only reason why it's not him.
Right.
But otherwise, and Brink's going to probably come in here now and get his chance. And
I'm excited to see what Bobby Brink has to offer.
I am too. I think that, and these guys, I don't want to, again, I want to, similar to what I said about Attard and Cates, you don't want to assume that this is just oh yeah, they're coming in right now and they're going to be on the team next year because they're coming in right now. They really just want to look at them at this level, straight out of college. Do you need the AHL, or are you, was the college experience enough? And I think,
are you ready?
Yeah.
Your second line.
Oh boy.
Your center is Joel Farabee. Your left wing is Cam Atkinson. Your right wing is Bobby Brink.
You're really on board with this Joel Farabee center thing.
Absolutely. Why not? I know Scott Lawton's back, and Joel has mostly moved back to the wing, and was sick for Saturday's game. But generally speaking, sure, give him the experience. Let him take draws for 20 games. Who cares? If he's bad at it, take him off it in the offseason. No harm, no foul. He's having fun.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I think the ideal thing is to keep him at wing, just because I think that's where he's most productive. I think it's where he's a better goal scorer, which is I think what they really want from him.
I agree.
But I think one of the other parts of the issue here was that they were doing it at a time when Lawton wasn't playing, and you're still,
nervous about Kevin Hayes.
Exactly. You're being very careful with Kevin Hayes, and because right now there's it's kind of come back to that. There's as far as everything else goes, there's a healthy balance right now at the center position. Not in terms of, hey, listen, this is an optimal center lineup, but at least you have 4 guys who play the position naturally that you can sit there and say, yeah, I want them playing center right now because these are the guys I want to see at that position for the rest of the year. Hayes comes back. Hayes is looking more and more in a lot of games, he's looking more and more like the player he should be. Lawton comes back into the lineup, so you kind of figure into that. Frost is playing center minutes, which is good.
Sure.
That's what you need to see.
Right.
And I don't know that you need to force the issue and say, hey, let's play Joel Farabee at center just because. If they want to, that's fine. I'm not sitting there saying there's anything wrong with experimentation. Right. It's just I think that naturally you would want to have him on the wing and
I agree.
And let's put it this way. You want me to add to the center equation with something that's a little bit of a positive thing? We already know his fate for the rest of this season, but it's good to know.
Sean Couturier is still coming back.
Well, Sean Couturier is actively skating after practices.
That's good.
Because everything was winding down, and Sean Couturier popped onto the ice at the end of the little morning skate on Saturday.
Right.
And it's like, okay, good to see him out there. He looks good, like moving well. I don't want to sit there and say like he's not close to game ready or anything like that. And that's why he's done for the year.
I don't want him to, right?
And they don't need him to. But
correct.
But you have to be encouraged by the fact that he's already out there doing something,
For
hey,
sure.
look, it's just quick skating. It's nothing complicated, but it's something. And
if he
was
can
out
get
there,
healthy by the offseason, hopefully he has a normal-ish offseason, and that's the most important thing.
Right. And I think the key here is that I don't know how much more recovery he has, but I don't know, from now until mid-July, like if you go 2 more months from now and get to mid-July or 3 months from now and get to mid-July, that a good enough timetable to sit there and go, hey, you know what? For 6 weeks, you can ramp it up a little more and then come into training camp ready to go.
Absolutely. And I think that that's exactly what he's thinking. I'm willing to bet that Sean Couturier is coming back as the best version of himself.
You have to hope for it. I mean, it's one of the things that's going to make you a good enough team next year to make some noise.
I was about to say, and by the way, in a perfect world, I do agree with you. I do prefer Joel Farabee on the wing. In an ideal world, I also prefer Scott Lawton on the wing, to be fair.
It is fair.
And then moving forward, if you have a healthy, strong Sean Couturier as 1C, Kevin Hayes as 2C, maybe Morgan Frost as 3C, and then who cares? Nate Thompson as 4C. But at that point, you're starting to resemble a real NHL lineup, which is not what you currently have, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not, but and then here's the thing to kind of, because you bring up you prefer Lawton on the wing. I tend to as well, but I think that one of the issues that they have right now is they don't exactly have guys. I don't want to say who can jump Lawton in the lineup. It's not that. It's their center depth is really thin. They don't exactly have a guy who
Scott
makes you feel
Lawton's currently a better NHL center than Morgan Frost.
Right. And
for example.
And I don't. Again, that's not a knock on Morgan Frost because Frost has been playing
still
better,
developing,
but he's played better lately. Like there was some talk because Mike Yo was kind of hard on Frost yesterday for whatever reason, and I there's elements of it where you don't know why he's harder on one guy than another, things like that. Like the play, like you gotta go back and look at the positives for what they are, right? Like Morgan Frost sets up the Travis Sanheim goal that starts the scoring on Saturday, and it's a pass from below the goal line. He kind of uses some speed, creates some separation. Next thing you know, Sanheim standing out at, kind of at the top of a circle, top of the right circle with some space. He gets the puck. He puts a shot on goal. It leaks through, but, they all count the same no matter how you look at it. But
they don't ask how, they ask how many.
But the setup's what creates the goal because it's coming from behind you. It's a tough look for a goaltender because you're changing your perspective of things. You're trying to look here and then come back out in front, and it's a pretty quick release from there. Like it's well done, and I like, and he's shown more than just that. Like he's shown some willingness to try to, use some of that skill at times. Like he tries to be creative, and it doesn't always work, but he does, and you got to give him credit for that. He's trying really hard to do it, and he's gotten more and more assists. Like I think people want him to be the goal scorer he was in juniors.
I don't think that's going to happen at the NHL level.
But I think that's what people want specifically.
Yeah, I agree.
Not the playmaker he was in juniors, which he could become, like not in terms of production. I'm not trying to get to that level, but I'm saying he's got more assists than goals. Let him become that player. Let him become the guy who sets guys up. Because
I prefer your center as your playmaker over your shot taker anyway, generally speaking.
I mean, I don't want to not for nothing here, but like a guy who played 20 games in his so-called rookie season, which wasn't much of a rookie year, scores twice, has 5 assists, 7 points in those 20 games, and let's not forget that like he made his debut, he scored a goal. His second
He scored a nice little goal.
And then what was it? His second game that he had the other one?
I believe it was 2-2, and then he kind of hit the drought.
Yeah, okay, so he had 3 points in his first 2 games and then 4 for the rest of the year. So 4 over the last 18. I'm not trying to like praise him completely here for, his overall numbers for the year, because you've played 45 games. 12 points is not a good, point percentage per game.
And then we mentioned it with Wade Allison, but he's also a guy who's had some issues staying healthy sometimes.
Right, but there is a positive to me anyway of, and I kind of have to count this out, but I believe it's the last 7 games, 4 points in your last 7 games. Well, when you have 12 points on the season in 45, but you say 4 in the last 7, that's a positive trend.
You're starting to generate some offense.
Right, like you're starting to get there a little bit more, and it's not like you're an invisible part of the team anymore. Like I think he was when everything is still, Claude Giroux is still here, and Derek Brassard is trying to get into the lineup, and this and that. Like now he's very much a key part of the lineup in terms of he's gonna get minutes. They can't avoid that anymore. He's gonna get minutes.
Right.
And he's using those minutes fairly effectively. I mean, down to, the game, he plays the game in Nashville, he's a +2. He has the Toronto game was rough. The first Columbus game, he was a -1. He didn't have points against the Rangers or Columbus the first time around, but he's had a couple positive ones. He looks okay. Yeah. Is there another level for him? I wouldn't. I can't doubt that. I think there's
certainly
another
hope
level.
so. To be fair.
Yeah, but is he looking terrible? No, he's not looking terrible at all.
Yeah, and it's nice to see some development and some sustained play time where he's getting expanded minutes and looking healthy, to be quite frank.
Sure. So off of Bobby Brink, let's go to kind of the big. I don't call it the big story, but it kind of was a big deal. It's definitely
so
because we love this
we
guy.
spent a lot of this show. We spent a lot of this show talking about guys who just got here. Let's close the show by talking about a guy who's been here for a while.
I'm not kidding when I say that. Probably been here the longest of anybody who's still around the organization.
I believe he's a day one employee, correct?
He is. So what people don't understand is, I know that people are going to see 50th anniversary celebration and go, well, what like he's been here, like the team's been around longer, and how's he a day one employee? He has been doing PA announcements for 50 years.
And the name we're talking about, by the way, is Lou Nolan. I don't know if we've mentioned that.
He has been the guy who you listen for on every goal, on every penalty.
Power play.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, it was funny because he even said that kind of took on a total life of its own, didn't it? Yeah. I mean,
one of my most.
By the way, he joked, by the way, that started as like he just made it as a standard announcement. The Flyers are going on the Pico power play, and they told him in the headset, give it a little more, give it more juice. And he goes, okay, so we kept giving it a little bit more juice, and now he basically, short of saying the exact words, everybody in the building calls it back to me.
Screams it. One of the funniest memories of my entire life is being at the Stadium Series game.
Yeah.
And I suppose the Pico contract is not covered in Lincoln Financial Field.
I don't remember this at all.
Because Lou Nolan calls out, and the Flyers are going on the power play. And it was very strange. And I started dying because it was hilarious. But yeah, I
don't get why that would be a thing, though, because I get what you're saying. Like it's probably a link thing or something like that. Like
it must be a building contract with Wells Fargo Center. I don't know. But either way,
I'd have to know if he did it at the Winter Classic that was at the ballpark.
Citizens Bank Park, right?
Yeah, just because that might make a difference. But like technically, it's a contract thing of the Flyers. So wouldn't the team take precedent over just the venue just because? Like the league, like whatever. I mean,
maybe he didn't know if he could say it, so he just defaulted not to. I'm pretty sure the Flyers only got one power play in that game. If I remember correctly, everything else was take both guys, or Flyers penalty after Penguins penalty. So by the time the Flyers started on the power play, like it was already mid play.
Oh, I got you, but well, they definitely had the power play toward the end of that game because they scored a goal.
The 4v4 going to the 5, or the 4v3 going to the 5v4. Right before Jake Voracek scored. Was it Jake Voracek or was that the JVR goal?
It was the JVR goal.
That was the JVR
power play. Right. Because actually it was a de facto 5-on-3 because they pulled the goalie with it, so it turned into
the 6-on-4.
Well, no, it wasn't a 6-on-4 by that point. I think it was still. I think it was a 5-on-3.
They had just come out of the box. They hadn't gotten back into the play
Oh,
yet,
that's right.
but they
that's
were
right.
back
It
on
was,
the ice.
Yes.
It was Malkin and Hag. Yeah, I know.
Well, good trade-off offensively.
Can you tell I've watched that game a couple of times?
That's how you're getting through this right now.
Oh man. When Claude got traded, I had to go back and watch the game before Wayne got traded.
Well, I do have to say, for somebody, because we're talking about Lou Nolan, and for somebody who's been around for obviously what feels like forever, you can't imagine anybody else doing this job. I mean, and it was funny because I'm trying to remember who said it, whether it was Mike Yeo or Scott Lawton. They were the two active team members that we talked to on Saturday morning. Might have been Lawton who even said, like, there's a couple games he's missed a couple games this year, and
it was weird.
And you notice it.
It's weird. And so all the respect in the world, in the world to Jim Jackson and to Gene Hart, but Lou Nolan's the voice of the Flyers.
Well, okay, so you said you didn't really get to catch the ceremony because you were working.
Correct.
During it. So Jim Jackson and Steve Coates hosted the ceremony because we've seen enough of these before one way or another that we all know the drill.
Right.
Lou Nolan is the MC of all the events.
Right, but who's going to MC when he... Right.
And helps induct people into the Flyers Hall of Fame, helps do jersey retirement.
Season awards at the end of the season.
Right, he's the guy.
He does everything.
So Jim Jackson and Steve Coates are doing the ceremony for him, for Lou Nolan. And they even made, I think Jim Jackson made the joke, see, Lou, it takes two of us to do what you can do. Like, it's true. Takes two of us to do what that job that you do so effortlessly. But, so, like, but the whole thing was, it was really well done. I mean, there's a couple elements to it that were really well done that need to be brought up. Because, I mean, first of all, they gave him a whole bunch of stuff. They gave him a whole bunch of stuff that he didn't even expect, not in terms of gifts even. I'm talking about, like, the players all wearing number 50 Nolan jerseys for warm-ups. And, like, Lou saw that, as like, because there was a whole release about what they were going to do. And Lou even said it, because he had a press conference on Saturday morning, and Lou even said...
I wish they didn't tell him. I wish the first time he saw it was when they hit the ice for warm-ups.
No, you know what? I don't think he knew about some of the other stuff. Like,
okay.
Like,
but that would have been cool.
Ceremony,
come on.
They announced that type of stuff because it's, you know what? I think there's enough preparation that goes into stuff like that they need to. By the way, the jerseys were really clean, by the way, because they were gray with like orange, like the orange numbers or orange outlined white numbers. It was really well done.
They were nice.
But he said at the press conference in the morning, like, almost like I don't get it. Like, I don't get what deserves that part of it. Like he's sitting here going, I guess I've earned all, like, a whole bunch of the other stuff, but like the players are going to wear jerseys with my name on the back. Like,
Lou, shut up. Come on. You've called every goal their entire career. Like, come on, Lou.
No,
come on.
He's just an incredibly humble guy who doesn't seem to think anything of it. Like, it's just a job. Like, honestly,
you say their name and then the building goes crazy. What do you expect, Lou? Of course they love you. Come on.
But he without having to get asked about, like, the actual events, brought up multiple times, like, he can't believe that it's happening, and, like, he goes, can't tell you what it means to him. Like, he goes, I can't tell you what it means to me to have the team do this. Like, he was just absolutely over the moon about having this ceremony and having this honor. And the cool part of the whole thing, by the way, that I think needs to be brought up, and I know it's a name that we've brought up on the show for various reasons before, usually not the most positive reasons, but this is a positive story.
Okay.
Lou Nolan specifically thanked Dave Scott in his remarks and said, you'll probably figure out why in a little bit. Okay. Reason why is because for the first time in over 2 years, Lou Nolan was sitting between the penalty boxes to make his announcements, which technically is still not allowed among the league.
Really?
And Dave Scott said, I don't care, I'll pay the fine.
Wow.
We're putting him between the benches tonight. Like,
love that.
And so kudos to Dave Scott.
That's a classy organizational move
for doing that, because when I turned around, my thought process behind it went, that's the most Ed Snyder thing that Dave Scott has done.
You're not wrong.
Say here, like we always sit here and talk about blank checks.
Bite me, we'll pay the fine.
There's the blank check. I'm taking the blank check and I'm writing it to the league. I'll pay the fine for putting this guy between the benches for one night.
And the best thing about Lou Nolan, by the way, is because similar to Claude Giroux, similar to Deuce Staley, similar to Michael Hanzus, his name is very Lou.
There were many of those to go around, and he earned every single one of them.
Okay, so you know how people will ask the hypothetical question: if you could have dinner with 4 people from history, living or dead, who would they be? Man, okay. Lou Nolan's high on the list. I don't know if he makes the final 4, but Jesus, he's high on the list. Come on, he's been between the penalty boxes for 50 years.
Do you want me to bring up the great story that he told? Because somebody asked him what was your first announcement?
I was gonna say, are you about to talk about Ty Domi in the penalty box? Or?
No, nope, it's not that. Okay. No, but somebody asked what was your first? Because he's been doing it for 50 years. You're talking about 1972. What was the first?
You've heard some stuff.
Well, and he turned his story was talking about how he believes that the first announcement he had to make. It's not I think maybe I don't know if we were looking for hey, what was the first goal? But we can go look up relatively speaking. Hey, whatever night, because they know what night he started on, I'm sure. And we could look up the date and figure out who scored the goal that he announces first or whatever. But he said the first announcement was that Bob Kelly and a member of the opposition had a disagreement. So they ended up in the penalty box, and the disagreement was still going on because they apparently they all shared this one.
It was one cubby, right?
Pretty much. So they're going
one
back
bench, right?
So he's sitting between the two of them because he's making the announcements from down there, and he said something about how, back then you didn't have because he joked about how progress in the NHL today,
right?
The pucks are kept in a refrigerator now to stay cool. They only had in 1972 they had an ice bucket,
Jesus Christ.
And apparently the conversation between the two got so heated that one of them picked up the ice bucket and just chucked the ice bucket right, and Lou made the motion while he was describing it, just goes like this, that's what they did.
Right.
And he goes, I'm in the middle of this, and I go, oh man, this is going to be something else. And that was one of the stories, and
that was probably the first period.
It probably was, and it's hysterical. And but the funny part is that one of the things that because some the question was, one of the questions was, what was your when you started doing this, what was the end goal? Was there I just hoped whatever, and Lou said Lou's answer legitimate was, don't get fired before the second game.
Do it for 50 years until they wear my number in warm-ups. What do you want from me?
Yeah, well, he never thought that level.
Right.
His literal answer was, do the first game and hope I don't get fired before the second. That's it, which is a great answer, because that's the way he feels. He feels like just this lucky guy to do it, and that's all there is to it. I think that your question, what you're just bringing up right now, that's a really funny thing. There's a group of Flyers, and I think you need to extend it to if you could have lunch with 4 people, living or dead,
this will be a summer topic for sure. We will absolutely.
But I already have at least 3 people.
Okay, just from Flyers history here.
Yes.
Okay.
Because if you're putting Lou Nolan down there for stories, and you're putting Gene Hart and Ed Snyder down there too, let's all have lunch and just tell stories.
Does JJ get in by default there, and then, or do you go 2 players?
Well, no, I already did 3 because I did Lou Nolan, Ed Snyder, Gene Hart.
Oh, you're right. You only got one more name there.
So I only got one more, and I don't know if I go with either.
You have to go with a player.
Then if I really want entertaining stories, I think, with all due respect to anybody else I could name, if I'm going stories, I guess I think I got to go with Bernie. Because Bernie's got stories.
Okay, fair enough. I'll do this real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Flyers history. I'm going to change tack here. I'm going to swap Gene Hart out for Jim Jackson, just because over my lifetime, Jim Jackson, I've seen more calls. So we still have. That. I'm not right. Of course.
Me too. But
yeah. Ed Snyder, Jim Jackson. I think I might be going 2 players here. And okay, so are we talking?
You can pick whoever you want to.
Right, but are we talking truth serum? Nobody ever finds out what we talk about? Because if that's the case, I'm getting Scott Hartnell.
Okay, I thought you were going a totally different direction with that.
I'm going Scott Hartnell, and it was close between Scott Hartnell or Jeff Carter. Because holy,
You want, okay, so you want the bottom line to that story,
All right.
right?
Yeah, I sure do.
All right.
And then my other one, I'd probably go somewhere back in the day. And I'm going to go bullies, but I'm not going to go Bernie because I feel like Bernie has kind of told a lot of his stories publicly.
Okay, I can't see you go. Well, I'll let you answer, and then I'll tell you where I thought you were going to go.
I'm
Or where
gonna
I thought
go-
you
I'm
weren't
gonna-
going to go.
I'm going to go a little off the board here.
All right, who are you thinking?
And not really off the board if you think about it. I'm going to go with Bill Barber.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, yeah.
Because
I'll
he
take
was
that.
probably there for a lot of the really good stories, but he probably wasn't the centerpiece of a lot of really good stories.
Okay.
So he can probably tell some really good stories.
So here's the thing. First of all, I was correct in my thought going in because I was going to sit there and go, when you said you were going to go
A little bit
probably
off the beaten track.
No, but I thought when you said you were going to go bully, I'm like, okay, there's no, but not Bernie. I'm like, there's no way you're going Clark because I feel like that's like you're not. You're going to go more off the board here with this. You need to go a little more off the board. And I wasn't sure if you were going to go with, like, were you going to go with more of the physical tough guy kind of thing? You know, like one of those types of guys. You know, to be honest, when you said the truth serum thing, I didn't think you were going to say Scott Hartnell at all. I'll tell you who I thought.
Are you going Eric Lindros?
Yes.
Because, man, that's also true.
Like, I thought when you were sitting here saying truth serum, we get to sit there and talk.
Is the first question, why didn't you want to go to Quebec?
No. My first question is what really happened at the end. You know,
Fair.
Like full details.
Give me a
everything.
transcript
What really
of the
happened.
conversation with Bobby Clark.
Right, like full details. Like I'm not talking about what everybody knows the story to mostly be. I'm talking about full details. Everything.
Second question has to be, why didn't you want to go to Quebec? All right.
He's actually answered that for like in recent years. He really has.
Did he?
answered. Oh yeah. Around the time he went into the Hall of Fame, he's actually answered that question because he's gone back and visited. He's visited Quebec in recent enough years. The whole thing had to do with ownership. It was quite literally ownership, and he said.
And I think he alluded to that at the time. To be fair,
he basically flat out said in one interview anyway, if Quebec would have been owned by anybody else, then the Flyer thing would have never happened. He would have never been a Flyer.
Fair.
Or at least never been a Flyer at the beginning.
And who knows? Like, Quebec might not have moved to Colorado. Like, who knows what kind of wormhole we would have gone down as an NHL.
Ooh,
well,
you know what? Really quick, can I bring up an NHL point really quick?
Yeah, for sure.
Because it just flashed across my.
Say we're getting
my Twitter
dangerously close to a summer show.
No, I know, but it's something worth mentioning because we're speaking of like players who are Hall of Famers and doing amazing things or do amazing things in their career.
Ovi's still ridiculous. I don't know if that's
but I'm bringing up Austin Matthews because Matthews, 51 goals in 50 games.
51 goals in 50 games, which, by the way, I know it's not a 50 and 50 because like the NHL only likes that from the start of the season.
50, yeah, I know.
But it's a 50 and 50, and like probably more impressive if you consider that you're down the stretch a little bit, and also that included the COVID pause.
Right, it still hasn't happened for what 27 years,
something like that. It's insane what he's doing.
What was insane is the fact. Okay, so apparently he scored the first one. It's a technical 50 and 50. They had to change goalies because Jake Allen got hurt. Montreal did, and the first shot on the next goalie is Austin Matthews in the net.
Feels bad.
So
man.
51.
Yeah,
he's 58 on the season.
He's ridiculous. If he didn't have a slow start, where I think he had like 3 goals through 18 games or something like that. If he didn't have his slow start, he would have scored 70.
We are we are doing a show. We are doing a show next week, so I'm not trying to like jump too far ahead here.
Yeah, but we are starting to look towards the playoffs here, and we're starting to look at the playoff teams.
That's not where I was going to go with this. There's 4 more. Well, at least for the Flyers anyway. There's 4 more games before they play Toronto. What number goal does Austin Matthews score in that game against the Flyers? Is it straight up like is a week and a half too much for 60 at that point? Or are we looking at 65 maybe?
I think he scores 63, 64, 65, and 66 against the Flyers.
Oh wow, you're going 4-goal game.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well hold on. Okay, so
because you know how when Ovi decides he wants to score, Ovi scores a lot. I think Austin Matthews is there, and I think he's pushing for 70.
I mean, it would be insane if he did.
It'd be insane. First since what, Mario?
I'd have to go look, but yeah, it's probably
I'm reasonably positive it's the first 70 since Mario in like 93 or whatever.
I do want to sit there because I did just really quickly look. Toronto also has 4 games before they play the Flyers. So their next. Oh, by the way, want me to tell you who their next 4 games are against?
Okay.
Buffalo, Washington,
Soft.
Washington,
Solid, yeah.
Ottawa,
Soft.
Islanders.
Soft. Flyers, soft.
How many goals is he scoring in the next 4? He's scoring at least 5, isn't he?
Well, that's why I'm saying 63, 64, 65, 66 against the Flyers. I think he goes absolutely bananas.
All right, I'll tell you what my prediction is then. And I know we're a week early, but I'll tell you what my prediction is from here because it'll look better if we do it this way. Because by that point, by the time we do the next show, there's only going to be one of these games left. He'll score 5 in the next 4, and he'll score 64 and 65 against the Flyers.
Okay. I think that's entirely, I think that's
where
we're
by
at.
the way, if he does that much, gets to say 65 in the next 5 games, he's still got 5 more to get to 70.
Unreal. And he's going to do it.
I believe they said his pace is 67 for what it's worth. So,
yeah, but he's been cranking it up recently. So
no, I know, but I'm saying his pace being 67, he's going to get there, I think.
Yep. So,
insane.
All right. Well, we're going
to leave it on.
We're going to get out of here. We're heading towards the playoffs, so we will be talking about kind of stuff across the NHL a little bit more. So, get an ESPN Plus subscription.
It's great. Next week, there's nothing. Like this week, we felt like we definitely wanted to get the Lou Nolan stuff in because that was a cool thing. And so next week, there's nothing. There's no ceremonies. There's no nothing. We're just going to probably be shifting gears straight to here's what the Flyers did. Let's talk. Yeah, here's what the Flyers did. Let's talk playoffs.
Yep.
Not with the Flyers involved, obviously, but let's talk.
And you know what? That is exciting news. So
I'm excited for this stuff, especially as we get into the real playoff push.
And those things will come out pretty much everywhere where you put your podcasts out. Facebook, Instagram, Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We're on YouTube. Our episodes tend to go up at 8 p.m. on Sunday with some variances due to scheduling, but that's okay.
Only one more of them, I swear.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter at YWT Podcast. Follow Kevin at Kevin_Durso. Follow at Sports Talk PHL. Follow at Flyerdelphia. We're running out of time on the season here. And until then, I guess follow the others too. Was it Eagledelphia, Philadelphia? Like we're full blown in plug the other channel season.
Then let me add to that really quick because
sure.
We're recording this on the Sunday morning like we always do. It'll go up on Sunday night at 8 o'clock. The Sixers are going to play their last regular season game on this Sunday, so playoff push is on. Follow the Sixers, our Sixers portion of this, and our Sixers staff for that.
Is that Sixerdelphia?
Yeah. Yes. And then when Sports Talk PHL has everything covered, so you can keep
follow them for everything.
Follow them for everything. Obviously, Philly season kicked off on Friday. Friday. So I'm starting to lose track of my days here. But kicked off, that got started on Friday. 2 wins right away out of the gate. It's been some fun. I'm already eagerly anticipating that last week of the Flyers season because I'm going to a game that week, and then I got a couple more lined up too. So I'm looking forward to going down to the ballpark again for some, to actually go as a fan.
Right.
It's fun to go to a sporting event as a fan for the other teams, and all that type of stuff. And then, Eagles is kind of I want to say Eagles is in the kind of quiet period, but it's not because the draft is this month. So there's a lot of stuff ramping up with that stuff too. So, I'm getting ready to go into the cave at the end of the month.
Fair.
For a while because for the 2 months, about 2 months of the playoffs, there's nothing going on, so I don't get to do
pretty
anything.
much.
But, otherwise, those guys are going to have you all covered, and it should be a good time,
Yep. Follow at Sports Talk PHL, and they'll take good care of you.
Except for the part where the people on the Sports Talk PHL Twitter put out there at 6:30 yesterday, or maybe it was 7 because the game started at 7:30 on Saturday. Put out there that Sixers won, Phillies won, Union won, Flyers. Keep dreaming, guys. Keep dreaming, people. Yeah.
All right. And on that note, we'll be back next week. We'll see you.